Welcome to Mobile Armor Radio, the podcast for all things Mecha. Jumpship incoming.
Welcome to Mobile Armor Radio, episode 47. It is May 2022. How the time flies. I'm Rob.
I'm Brian.
And I'm addicted to you because you know that I'm toxic. Chopper.
Who
has a song stuck in his head.
He's Britney Spearsing it.
I'm Britney Spears, joining Mobile Armor Radio.
That's the worst impression I've ever heard.
Well, I don't even know.
You've got like a frog in your throat.
I don't even know what she sounds like. In my head, that's what she sounds like. She's from Texas.
Is she from Texas? Enough about Britney Spears. This is a special episode. We have a great guest coming up later, but until then, we'll talk about other mech-related things.
It's a surprise.
It's probably in the title, but it's
probably in the title of the show.
Well, for those of us like me who can't read.
Oh, you never learned to read. Anyways, enough of this. Let's get on to the dropship.
Dropship landing.
Welcome to the dropship. This is where we discuss what we're working on, what we're playing with, what we've bought lately. And we'll start with Brian. Brian, have you got anything new or exciting going on with the mech-related stuff?
For one thing, I'm feeling better than last time.
You're actually here. You're not.
Oh, that's right.
You got out of that mech. Yeah, you're no longer encased in a mech that where their vocal cords cut off.
Is that what you guys told her?
Well, that's what happened. So we told them the truth.
That's what happened. Yeah, we saved your life by putting you in a mech.
Oh, okay.
That's why you recovered.
That's what it was. Yes.
You thought you were just in bed under a blanket. No, you were in a giant mech.
Well, yeah, obviously. But as far as like hobby stuff goes, trying to think. Since it's been for me, it's been 2 months.
Yeah. Anything exciting at Adepticon that you got or anything like that? You never got to talk about Adepticon.
I never really got to talk about Adepticon. I had gotten mostly Dead Zone related stuff, honestly. And with the firefight announcement one night, I've been focused a lot on terrain. There were some guys there that were selling these guys that Paradise Games, I think is his company. They are basically making their own some of their own 3D printed terrain made for Dead Zone, with the added thing being that they'd incorporated hatches and internal stairwells and LEDs and actually electric fans running on the board. So really neat terrain ideas. And they actually were at Adepticon and had a little booth where they were selling their stuff. And so I got a set of that. I haven't put it together yet, but I'm excited to dig into it. And then the guy who did a while back the isolation protocol, his company is Corvus Terrain, and he actually has a Kickstarter going on right now for a new set of terrain packages called his Starport, Tycho Starport, I think is the title for it. And so I've been printing off the sample STLs that he made of that, but basically getting back into the swing of building out some terrain to make all sorts of crazy cityscapes and whatnot. But yeah, so that's been the extent of it. A lot of my painting stuff has kind of been a little bit on hold, but I imagine I'm going to be getting back into it here in the near future especially if I need to build out my force for Firefight from Mantic Games. I've got a lot of GCPS to paint because they
How do you feel that there's no
spots.
revs? There's no revs in in Firefight. How does that make you feel?
I am sad. I'm internalizing a lot I don't blame people or anything like that. I know.
I would blame all kinds
I
of
blame
people.
Yeah.
I know the real reason. I don't agree with all the reasons that people keep saying. It's like, oh, the Rebs would never, have a standing force at that scale. And I'm like, yeah, but we like watching Star Wars, and
make a difference.
Those guys, you play Star Wars Legion. What scale's that at, guys?
You don't overthrow a regime with just 10 guys.
Right.
That's the bottom line. That's really what it is.
So I'm gonna bide my time a little bit, and you know what? The last time Firefight First Edition came out, one of the players at Adepticon had done like a Rebs themed GCPS force, and on top of that, it was all like Guardians of the Galaxy themed. I think it was John Carter, it was sweet.
He only lost out on winning the best painted because he faked a sound card into the ship, the Bolano. We're like, oh, this is so amazing. He's got sounds and everything. And it turned out he just had his cell phone in there. We're like, you trying to cheat us.
Trying to cheat us. Classic John Carter. But no, so I'm definitely doing that. And then as well, and speaking of Rebs, there's a Dead Zone summer campaign coming up, so I might have to, that'll be coming up this month, actually.
I almost thought you said Dead Zone summer camp. I'm like, what?
Summer camp. Go away for 2 weeks.
That would be sweet. My wife would hate it. But no, so definitely have more projects on the burner, and especially with, hopefully the weather starts turning nice. Start getting things like primed and painted again, and enjoying going down in my basement where hopefully it won't be as cold, or maybe it will still be cold when it's in summer. So,
that's right. Nicely cold, not freezing to death cold.
Exactly. That's enough for me. How about you, Pat?
Did you just call me babe?
I thought he said babe. No, that's funny.
Well, sweetie, let me tell you what's going on. Not too much, actually. Since the last time we talked, we knew that the hobbiness was going to have to come rather quickly. So the long, arduous reorganizing of the basement is started to happen now, because a lot of things from the upstairs got thrown into the downstairs during the renovation. So now that the upstairs is renovated and semi-organized, now I'm either throwing stuff away or bringing stuff back upstairs and kind of cleaning out the...
Making it all messy again, much to the chagrin of your wife?
Yeah. Well, a lot of stuff we're going to be tossing. There's a lot of ex-furniture stuff, like that couch on there. I think we're just going to get rid of. Well, she, my wife. Those who don't know my wife, when she draws something on a piece of paper and has planned it out, that's what it's going to look like. And so my couch and my favorite recliner are not going to survive.
They're not in the picture?
No. So those got to come out of the basement and either got to go to the curb or the Goodwill, which I haven't figured out I'm going to do yet. So there's some big moves and some big cleans to be done left before I can actually get to the paint. But I'm hoping that within the next week or two, I got a long stretch off, but most of that's covered or taken up with little wars that are happening this weekend.
Or last weekend, by the time this comes out.
Yes. Coupled with Adepticon just being around, just happening.
Busy. It's a busy time of the year.
It's been a busy time. But that's not to say I didn't do anything. So I did, in my reorganizing of things, I did find the legendary Mech Warrior box set. I was like, oh, that'd be a nice, easy, quick project to mess around with up here before I can get downstairs. So I started painting the Grey Death Legion mech, Grayson. Started painting his mech on my desk here, nice. Much to my wife's anger.
Because it's nice.
Why are you painting upstairs? Because I can't paint downstairs.
I can't see the downstairs. That's cool.
So, but that's roughly it. Yeah. I have two big goals: get that basement done, get that stupid Neo Jean. Not stupid, but it's because it's been a dream model. But get that Neo Jean done.
I'm sorry I called you stupid. Please forgive me.
Yeah, it's just so big, and there's so many parts to it. Oh my god!
It is a project.
It's daunting.
Yes.
But that's it in a nutshell. That's all I've got done.
For me, I haven't done much. I haven't painted in forever. We got to get back painting sometime. We got to do hobby hangouts again because I haven't painted anything in forever. But I did 3D print a mech. I backed Kickstarter for, it's called Carbon Gray. It's a role-playing game, but it was a Image comic book, and it's kind of like an alternative sci-fi steampunky World War I. But it's so funny that in the Kickstarter there's STL files, so they provide it, and it's all the different characters you could be in the role-playing game and stuff. Plus there was this mech. But when I read the Kickstarter came with the graphic novel, so I read the graphic novel, and this mech shows up for literally like 2 seconds and gets destroyed. It's so funny. So, but it was fun to print. It's kind of cool looking. It's like a quadrupedal mech, and the post is up on the Facebook group if you want to go see it. But yeah, so it's kind of fun. I did that. That's about it. Yeah, I haven't done anything else. I haven't even printed that many mechs. I haven't done anything. I've been printing a lot of X-Men. That's about it. So they don't count.
Unless they have Sentinels.
Yeah, I did do Sentinels. We talked about those before. We'll move on to the ComStar. There's a lot more to talk about the ComStar, hopefully. So we'll get on to that. We'll be right back.
Oh, good bug.
Message from ComStar.
I'm Brian.
And I'm Rick.
From Dead's on the Podcast.
And you're listening to
Mobile Armor Radio.
And welcome back to the ComStar. We talk about movies, TV, books, comic books, RPGs, video games, that kind of stuff. We'll start with Pat this time. Anything happening, Pat?
No, not too much. I got 5 minutes into the new Pacific Rim Black.
I've binged the whole season. How dare you not?
And then, well, the problem is I was going to start to watch it, and then I got... Don't tell anyone at work, but I was watching it at work, and then I had to go take care of something.
Yeah, and actually do something.
So I was 5 minutes into it when I had to actually get back to work.
Yeah. It's
so, and then I got busy, and then I never got a chance to go back.
Yes, I watched the whole thing just to jump on it, and it's depressing, and then happy, and then sad, and then really sad. And it's a good show. They wrapped it up. You can tell that they had to wrap it up quick. I think they assumed that they'd maybe have more than 2 seasons, but still, it had an ending, so it's all right.
Nice.
No
it's kind of funny to jump on that one too, because it's actually one of mine. Is that while I was sick, I actually finished watching season 1. Must have been right before season 2 came out, because I watched all of it and then passed out. And I was like, the season 1, that was pretty good. I wonder when I'll just wait till season 2 comes out.
Well, now it's out.
And now it's out.
So it's good. You get right into it. I had to sit there for a second. What happened in season 1?
Yeah.
Be right in there. We didn't mean to jump on you, Pat. What else? I know you got your red line in. You going to talk about that?
I got my red line. I was going to talk about that. I got my red line cards. I hadn't actually had a chance to play a game yet with the new expansions. But I did kind of swap some cards out of my United, what is it again? United Nations of the Earth?
Yeah,
UNE? Yeah. So I'm very curious to try that out some more. I know our good buddy Jack Johnson, not to be confused with Jack, but he jumped in. He bought the core set. Actually, he was going to pay me back, but it was his birthday the day it arrived.
Oh,
so nice. I gave him the core set that he was going to buy for his birthday.
Cool. So you have somebody to play with at least.
Nice.
Yeah.
Happy birthday, Jack Johnson.
So next time we meet, we'll be able to play, and I'll have the little siege cards in there. We'll see if it unbalances it a little bit.
Siege adds artillery and mines, which is kind of interesting, and different new settings and stuff, which is cool.
Yeah. We were told it shouldn't unbalance the game, right?
Oh, no, it should be fine.
Like Cameron talked to us about it, and he says it shouldn't.
Nah.
It shouldn't be like a deck creep or anything kind of a thing like you would get with Magic.
I think it's just more of the same. Just different. Just add a little bit of a extra flair.
I got
new generals and stuff, which is cool.
Yes. Continuing on with Kickstarters, I got my 5150 Warfare books. Mech Warfare, what do we call it again?
Yeah, 5150.
I didn't get the actual
You got the PDFs
books,
for it?
but I got the PDFs. So downloaded those and kind of just gave a cursory glance through. I didn't get to do a full sit down.
Because you played it before, you just played the older version of it?
Yeah, but I think this, doing a cursory glance, it looks like it might have changed a little bit because it's 5150 Total War. Then you have the 3 books, the Star Army, the Star Navy, and the...
Mechs and Infantry or something it's called, I think?
Yeah, Mechs and Infantry or something like that.
Yeah.
No, it's Total War, Star Army Total War. That gives you the infantry. Then you add the Total War tanks and mechs. And then the Star Navy, which gives you air and space fighting. So it looks a little bit different, I think, off cursory glance. So the cool thing is that you can use this for 28 or 15 millimeters now that they were talking about in the RoboBits. So
that's cool.
As probably next month, I should have these things perused in a more, because I just got these maybe 2 or 3 days ago.
Gotcha.
As the PDF links. Right now, I think he was having problems with a printer. He seemed to be very upset about not with the community itself, but I guess with the production of the books itself. So I think maybe by running into some problems with that. So he got the PDFs out ASAP. Things are at the printers, and they should be coming out. The book should be coming out fairly soon, he said. So
yeah, I think another issue was with international shipping. I think he's just like, if you're not in the United States and Canada, I'm sorry, I just can't send it to you in a physical copy because it's just too expensive.
Oh, yeah. You remember he did send that email out. He goes, I'll refund you your money if you pledge for the books. I'll refund your money and give you the PDFs, but I just can't do international shipping right now. I remember that.
Yeah, because it's just gone through the roof. It's just gotten ridiculous.
It is, and I don't fault him for that, and kudos to him for offering a refund at least to the guys that are outside. And
I'm sure it wasn't that many, but yeah, who knows?
Yeah, it just sucks that you can't get this. You can't get your product out to whatever country you're in because
you're still getting the PDF, which nowadays, personally, I like having the books as a collector. But when I want a game, I like the PDF better because you can search it. It's so much easier to flip through a PDF than it is a book. Well, it's 50-50, I guess. Sometimes. The book's easier. Yeah. Matters how well the PDF is linked to you. But
so again, I am excited because we had a whole show of miniature agnostics, and we have a ton of stuff we can play around with this game. We can 3D print 15 millimeter infantry troops, and then we can get it going.
Yeah. 15 mil, well, or you could just buy, Flames of War. They're 15 millimeter, I think.
That's true. That's all I got, though.
Brian, how about you? You've watched anything, seen anything, done anything?
Well, like I kind of mentioned before, I did finally finish season 1 of Pacific Rim Black, which was a very interesting. Now that I'm caught up and can talk about it a little bit, like I won't spoil anything, but it definitely takes that franchise in a very unique direction that I didn't expect. But
wait till season 2
at the same time, like definitely not opposed to it. So it seems like they have a pretty good handle on kind of what they want to do with it, and it's still kind of that wonderfully strange kind of thing that I think appeals to that Guillermo crowd.
Yeah. It definitely became much more anime. Like it went into full anime series where they could do stuff that they could never have done in the movies in this cartoon for sure. So
yeah.
It's exciting. Although I'd like to see some of it live action. Some of it would be pretty cool, I think. But
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yeah. And then to talk a little bit about I was going to mention some of the Adepticon stuff is kind of the only other thing I got going on. I did finish playing through Mass Effect 1 on the Legendary Edition, so that was a fun time. Waiting to start it. The first game doesn't have as many mechs in it. They still have the Geth, which is their kind of robot alien race. But the second one is where we and third one we start getting more like stompy robots that our heroes are fighting against. But as far as Adepticon stuff that I wanted to mention, in case you guys didn't get to, wanted to give a quick little shout out to the Mantic's Overdrive game, which is a fun little like arena. It for those that are kind of familiar with Dreadball, this is like the halftime show, which is a battle between the giants of that game series. So it's all hex grid based, so it's all 6-sided hexes, and then but they're the big beasties that stomp around in there. So you have like giant turtles, you got giant robots, and all sorts of other goodies. We ran, I think, two demos of that, and everyone that came and played it absolutely loved it. It has some really fun mechanics as far as like they have a draft mechanic, so you're not necessarily going to play the same team each time. You know, one player gets to pick, and then they get to kind of Red Rover the rest of the players onto their team, and it's three players versus 3 players and a couple of different scenarios. So that was a lot of fun, and I think people really enjoyed it. So I think that one's worth checking out if that sounds like it appeals to you. And then another one that was because I was basically hanging out in the hallway outside of where a lot of the Mantic games were going on, because I was running the Hellboy stuff. But I did get to glance. I don't know if you got a chance to see it, Pat. They did a Mech game, which was a 28 millimeter scale.
Ooh.
So Mech Attack, I kind of did some research on it afterwards, is like this another kind of agnostic style game. It's kind of just a general rule set, but it sounds like it has different scales you can play at. And so there was a group there that ran a scenario for players. They had a big table. I want to say, it must have been.
I must have missed it because I don't remember that.
Yeah, I think it was only there for one day or so. I got a little article that I found on it. I want to say this table is like, it's at least 4x4, if not 6x6. And so they made a big cityscape. It's 28 millimeter scale, but it has 28 millimeter people, and then like the equivalents of they're running like VF1s as the mechs, but to that 28 millimeter scale. So these things are as big as the buildings they have for scenery. I only got to like glance over at it, but it looks like it was a lot of fun, and if nothing else, it was really cool to look at because they had varying scales within that battle. So it's like you have troops that are like I said, 28 millimeters, and then you have some units that are probably about like a 60 millimeter base that are about like a Strider size. And then you have we have a VF1 here, and it's like 2 stories tall. So I'll send you guys a link to it because this was really neat to see.
Yeah, it'd be great to see it because I didn't see it. I must have missed it. But then I got a lot of chance to get up there.
Yeah, it was at. I'm trying to think what day, because it was at the big Kings of War tables. after they were done.
So it must have been Saturday then.
Yeah, it must have been Saturday when they were actually playing Kings of War. But no, this was a really neat thing. I guess they've done it a couple of years in the past, and this was kind of a big return for them. So it was really neat to check out. So definitely keep your eyes out on the game. I'll have to look into it and see how it plays. But yeah, it's really cool stuff.
I found it on War Games Vault. It's $6, so there you go. If anybody's interested in some mech action, we do have an affiliate link. If anybody's interested, they can.
It's called Mech. It's called Mech Action, right?
Armor Grid Mech Attack is what the game's called.
Okay. Yeah.
I guess in the past they used dust models at Adepticon. I found a post about them using dust models. Cool.
Mm-hmm. But yeah, so we'll probably post the link to that right up in the show notes there. But otherwise, that really kind of encompasses a lot of what I had going on. Like the rest of you guys, it's been a crazy couple months. And so, but yeah. So I guess I'll pass it back to you, Rob. I'm sure you have a bunch of announcements.
Yeah, lots of news, but I will say the only thing I really did was watch Pacific Rim. I binged the whole thing, and it was fun, and people should watch it. But up for Pat, I'm sure you're excited about this, but Shin Ultraman has come out, a trailer released.
Oh, yeah, I watched that trailer like about 100 times already.
Yeah. Nice. So it's the live-action version of Ultraman, but they're doing it like the Shin Godzilla, where it's more realistic, I think, is what the Shin is.
Yeah, hopefully I can find a dubbed or subtitled version.
I'm sure it'll come out in North America. People are obsessed with, especially with the Netflix having the anime, so I'm sure it'll probably end up being on Netflix eventually anyway, so the dubbed or subbed. Speaking of Netflix, though, Love, Death, and Robots Season 3 is coming this month from the old Netflix. It's not always giant stompy robots, but there have been some episodes with them in it, but there's also been great animes in general. Some hits, some mostly really amazing art, like at least.
Yeah, so some really visually compelling things.
Yeah, so it's always fun. Also,
they actually released a little trailer for it, but they mostly had clips from their previous seasons. I didn't really see any new clips in it.
No, I don't think they've released anything from the new stuff yet. Yeah, it was like, look what we used to do. So hopefully get some new stuff. Well, it's coming out this month anyway, so we'll watch it when it comes out.
Yeah, we won't have to wait long.
And lastly, Robotech Macross Dogfight from Kids Logic is on Kickstarter. It's the same Macross minis that Pat and I have been collecting for a while. A few new things, like you can get the SDF-1 and stuff, but it's their game. The game kind of reminds me of X-Wing a bit. It's got like movement angles, or what they call the arcs and stuff.
Movement templates.
Yeah, I'm not too crazy about like the game. They're not a game company. They're really a statue company that started making miniatures, but.
I don't know if it's going to fund.
I think it's funded, but it's pretty expensive.
I thought it did.
Yeah, it definitely funded, but it's
Is it funded? Oh, it is funded.
Like,
I was looking at it.
For the basic game, it's only like you only get like 4 mechs or something in it, so it's kind of low. But once you go up higher levels, it gets expensive, but you do get a lot more stuff. And if you haven't been me and Pat, I'm sure
It's also in Hong Kong dollars.
Yeah. Well, it's from Hong Kong. Kid Logic is in Hong Kong. But Pat and I have collected these miniatures. I'm sure you could get them cheaper through this Kickstarter than you would the way we were doing it. So if that's all you want, the miniatures, it's probably worth it. But yeah, don't be afraid. It's not Palladium. So many people are like, oh, I don't want to do another Robotech Kickstarter. It's like totally different company, and these guys have already made these miniatures for like 5 years now. They have
the SDF-1 though. Did you see that?
I know. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It was only for the early bird, right?
I think you can buy it as an add-on.
Early bird all-in, early bird deluxe, early bird collectors.
Yeah, but yeah.
I don't know, man.
You already own it all. You don't need it.
I know, but I don't have that SDF-1.
You have a 3D printer. I'm sure you could get an SDF-1 if you really wanted it.
Just saying.
I think you can.
I mean, the model quality does look pretty awesome. Like, not gonna lie. And like I
own all
haven't
these models, so that's the thing. That's the part that kills me.
true. And I for one, like I never really played X-Wing. Like looking at how some of the game plays that they've kind of shown so far, it does sound kind of neat. Like the movements, arcs and stuff like that. The fact that that's kind of tied to an elevation component was something that I've always thought would be really kind of the next step of like space combat games, which are often just 2D, and it's like, well, space, like the big thing about it is that it's 3-dimensional.
That's X-Wing. X-Wing does heights too, so. Gotcha.
Yeah, I was mentioning that to my buddy Rick the other day, and he's like, well, that's like X-Wing. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, so it seems to me that they played one game and it was X-Wing, and they just kind of stole the... stealing is a harsh word.
If you're gonna steal, steal mechanics.
Two giant spaceships. What are the two giant spaceships?
I think there's a Zentradi one.
I see Zentradi. I see an SDF-1.
That's 2.
Well, the pledge is for 2, but in their all-in edition, it says 3 giant spaceships. What's the third one?
You get 2.
I think the 2 SDF ones.
Or the 2,
I think
different forms.
I think one's the ship mode and one's the...
Oh, it's the robot form, Battleoid SDF-1. Got it.
Anyways, if you're into the miniatures, it's probably worth it. Like I say, it's already have most of these, other than the SDF-1. So.
Yeah, I think we got them all except for the SDF-1.
We do indeed. Yep. So, but they are amazing miniatures. Like, they are
such a sucker.
They are beautiful, but yeah. So you can add the Battleoid for $60. So you can get the Zentradi flagship for $60. It's they're both 150 millimeters high, that's not crazy high, but definitely not to scale.
No.
You can replace your cardboard. In your attack on SDF-1, you can replace the cardboard one.
See, that's not helping. That's not helping.
You can pledge for $1 and then just get that. Actually, I don't know if you can.
No, you can't. $12.
Yeah, dollars is the minimum.
It's 12 US.
No, it's HK10 it says about $2 Canadian.
2 HS. They're $2.
$2.
$2 American.
You can get in there, and so for $62 you can get the SDF-1 in Battleoid mode.
If I'm gonna do that though, I'd probably just get the game and try it out.
For $250.
No, 100. I wouldn't pay for all the figs, and then I would add the SDF-1 in the pledge manager.
For the $250, you get the SDF-1 and the other ship though.
Oh, but all right, let's do $120.
Rob, you're a bad influence.
And then add the other ones. $250 is a lot though, because it's gonna give me the 6. It's gonna give me the 60.
Just remodeling his basement, man.
$450, you get the SDF-1 in ship mode.
And I'd get all the Vertex. Oh shit, I'm doing all of this. What's the?
There goes his retirement.
Yeah.
$450, I'd get all of it.
You get
good thing that overtime money pays good.
Yeah, that's right.
It's true.
Pat will be working another couple of weeks to pay for this one. Anyways, I thought I'd just let you know about that, Pat. But other than that, that's about it. I haven't done anything else. I haven't played any games or anything. So let's move on to the MechBay Hanger. We have a special guest, Will from Ignition Core Games, to talk about Ignition Core, the mech game. And we'll get into that. Sound good?
Ignition Core.
He's going to hire you to do his trailers.
But that needs to be followed up with some kind of engine starting up, like either some kind of space engine or mech engine.
Brian, make an engine noise.
Vroom!
There you go. Perfect.
Now entering the MechBay Hanger.
And welcome to the MechBay Hanger. We have a special guest this week. This month, I guess. It's a monthly podcast. We screw this up all the time. It's all good. We have Will Neill from Ignition Core Games here to talk about his new mech game. How's it going, Will?
Hey, guys. It's going great. So, Yeah, no, I discovered the Mobile Armor Radio podcast through my sculptor, actually, the guy that makes all my miniatures.
Nice.
And I thought I'd reach out on a long shot that you guys actually might want to endure my obnoxious personality for a time while I gush about my game. You know, the greatest big giant robot miniatures game ever that you've never heard of.
Definitely, no worries, man. We're always excited when we find a new mech game.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So the game is Ignition Core. For those of you that are not familiar with it, I wanted to do something different from what was out in the market. I think mech gaming is like criminally underrepresented in the world. That video game space or the tabletop game space. I don't think I've ever played a good Mobile Suit Gundam video game. So
They're few and far between.
That is true.
You know, I would say they suffer the same curse that the Alien and Aliens movies did, particularly the James Cameron movie Aliens with the Colonial Marines and everything. They functioned great in the medium they were created in, and they inspired a lot of great video games and other source material, but they never were able to translate out of their original medium, which, you know, Aliens, it was movies. Mobile Suit Gundam, it was, you know, a great anime franchise. And it is the number one inspiration for Ignition Core, but, you know, I never played a good Mobile Suit Gundam video game, and I couldn't find any tabletop games. I mean, I found one in development. I actually know the person who's behind that project. We collaborated and become good friends, but I'm not here to talk about that tonight. No, Ignition Core. So if you're curious, if you want to take a look at the art, ignitioncoregames.com, all one word, you'll see it wears its inspiration on its sleeve. It's very Mobile Suit Gundam anime inspired. But in terms of the gameplay, where do I start? Mech games on the tabletop, MechWarrior. I've always been interested in MechWarrior, but I could never find a community. Tabletop miniatures gaming communities are dominated by other game systems. I won't name names, but it's really hard to get into anything that's niche like that or Infinity or anything of that nature. The rules for MechWarrior read like they were written by accountants. You know, so
it's
a lot of spreadsheets.
Yeah, it's not clear, that's for sure.
Learning and teaching it can be prohibitive. And then I always felt like the MechWarrior mechs were a little bit, they were not to my liking, you know, not to my style. They looked like Lockheed Martin got the contract to make mechs, and they made very practical, realistic mechs.
Yeah.
And for someone who grew up on Gundam, who grew up on Voltron, who grew up on Xenogears, you know, Xenogears is a all-time favorite video game of mine. You know, normal utilitarian military mechs isn't going to fly with me. Plus, on top of that, you know, I've been in the military myself for over 15 years, and you know, I've had an overdose of realistic. If that makes sense.
You went into that area, yeah.
Exactly. You know, I don't hang up my uniform at the end of the day, come home to play Call of Duty. I want big, giant, old Gundam-inspired mechs. I want them on the tabletop. I want a core rule set that you can read once and never have to read again. So if you look at the rules for Ignition Core, it's 8 pages long. And anything that makes the game like niche or situational is on the individual data cards. I definitely wanted a miniature style that's very reminiscent of the 16-bit tactics and RPG games.
Yeah, that's what I noticed. When I saw that first, I was like, wow, this looks a lot like tactics games. Yep, that's the very first thing I thought of.
Absolutely. It should evoke something out of Final Fantasy Tactics, but with mechs. Or, you know, some people look at it and they see Metal Slug.
Yeah,
you know,
I can see that.
Things of that nature. The other thing is in a game, say, like MechWarrior, where it's all a bunch of big mechs, is there's no size comparison. So, you know, you have a mech soup game where it's all mechs, nothing else, and you don't really have an idea of size. So I intentionally put, I made what I've called it the Armored Fire Team. The Armored Fire Team is the force structure in this game. You have your big mech that is piloted, and it's on a 75 millimeter base. You've got 2 support mechs that are drones that go on a 50 millimeter base, and they're about 2/3 the size. And then there's infantry that are on 25 millimeter bases. So you can see the big mech right next to the infantry and instantly be like, okay, This mech is the size of a small building. And then you've got your airship, which you use to ferry your troops up the board, because this isn't just line up your miniatures and roll dice till everything falls over. It's a game of tactical objective grabbing. And what I've found that a lot of people love is that the infantry are squishy but formidable, and you absolutely have to support the infantry to claim the objectives. And I wanted that interesting dynamic. I've seen a lot of games fail because it's like, I line up my models, you line up your models, and they move toward each other, and we chuck dice until nothing's left standing. So I wanted a bit of that, bit more tactical consideration than that. And yeah, that's the long and short of it. I found that I've worked on some other games, campaign-based games. I do have an RPG, a solo co-op, self-DMing RPG set in the Ignition Core universe that's in the works. And if you look on my Instagram, I guess we'll be posting links in the podcast, right?
Sure, yeah.
Show
notes, yep.
Okay, perfect. If you go look at the Instagram, you'll see some more, I want to call heroic scale anime miniatures of both the heroes and the mechs. And that's in the works for the RPG. Gotcha. So, yeah, I've kind of just ran my mouth like pretty here. I'm curious what you guys would like to know about this, aside from what I've kind of blurted out on the front end here.
Well, there's a few left. Well, go ahead, Brian. You can go first.
Well, I definitely it's fun hearing that your sculptor is a fan of the show, because I gotta say, the aesthetic that you've got, I don't know if you've listened before, but I am a big fan of the chibi style for big heads and smaller bodies and stuff. I know Pat's not as big a fan of it, but no, the style absolutely speaks to me. You definitely get a great not even just Mobile Suit Gundam, but Gundam Wing. And like you're saying, Metal Slug, a good Xenogears and Armored Core, all these things are really influences in there, and some really, really stunning designs. I absolutely love the look of this game.
Oh, thank you. And, to that end, my goal was to make 4 very distinct factions.
Mm-hmm.
The Paladin faction obviously calls out to Mobile Suit Gundam.
Yes.
Yeah.
People have looked at it and they've said, okay, who is it that did? I'm drawing a blank here. The guy that was behind the Ghost in the Shell designs.
Shiro Masamune.
Yep, Masamune Shiro. So there are people that look at the Oni faction and they feel that calls out a little bit more to Masamune Shiro. The Valkyrie faction, someone looked at that and they said, okay, that reminded them of Xenogears. That wasn't exactly what I was going for with that specific faction. I mean, they're, it's the all-girls faction. They're synthetics. It's really, waifu Viking murder dolls, but it works and people love it. And then the last faction, the Nephilim faction, is more kind of desert insurgency based, and their tech is a little bit more clunky, which I think, I'm trying to think, and I'm blanking on it. Was it Gasaraki was the one desert based mech anime where they were integrating Middle Eastern warfare and mechs?
I think so.
Yeah,
that name rings a bell. I haven't seen the show myself, but I know of it.
Yeah, Gasaraki. I'm actually looking at it right now. So, there was a bit more of that Gasaraki influence pulled. Some people actually looked at the Nephilim faction and were getting, I should write down all the inspiration that other people have pulled from this as well. Mass Effect. A lot of people looked at that faction and said, this reminds me, the robots specifically, and even the pilot for the Nephilim Warlord class mech. They got a very Mass Effect vibe off of it. So, yeah, I'm glad you like it. I definitely wanted to capture those very anime robot vibes and then just have a little bit of fun with each faction.
Yeah, for sure.
And then if you look at the chibi style on it, I use what I would call a heroic chibi. So the head is slightly exaggerated, but not excessively exaggerated.
Exactly. It was what I was saying. It totes a thin line for me. On the good side. On the good side.
I'm glad to hear.
Not huge enough that it really goes where it turns me off, I should say. I mean, because I really am not into that chibi look in itself, even though I know it's very, very popular.
Yeah, it's not quite the super deformed. It's more of, like you say, tactic style, which I really appreciate that.
Exactly. Yeah, I really want to.
Yeah, it does get that Final Fantasy grab for sure.
Yeah, definitely what I was going for. So definitely glad to hear that. I'm curious what else before I, because I could eat up an entire half hour just gushing about this game, but I'm curious to hear from you all.
Well, the thing that really struck me was you have some pretty innovative rules. Like the initiative phase that's something I've never seen anywhere else, which I think is very cool. Would you like to describe your thoughts behind making that?
Yes. So first off, I'm glad you brought up the initiative phase, because when I get this when I demo this game to people, everyone, they love it in theory, and then they get into the initiative phase in practice, and they're like, wow, this is a game within the game. The first time they're rolling that initiative phase, and for those of you that haven't read the rules, essentially it's an initiative tracker running 0 through 9, and each player is rolling 3d10 to secure 3 places on that initiative tracker, and then you're committing your troop types. So your infantry to one slot, your pilot to another slot, your support mechs to another slot. I have played a lot of tabletop games where it's just a simple, you move everything you've got, I move everything I've got, and we're just playing this battle of attrition, and usually there's a 60% or higher win ratio to whoever just takes turn 1, because they bring their forces to bear, they blow a chunk in their opponent's army, and then that player then activates all their units, but with a diminishing return. I thought I could do something more dynamic.
And it's also different from I Go, You Go, too, which I think's awesome. Like, people are like, or you said, everybody's sick of everybody goes and the other person goes, but everybody's kind of moving just to you go, I go. This is even more unique. So it's like you could have 2 guys go in a row, but you could also have the whole other team go first if you roll poorly.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, it has some games it just shakes out like that. Like, one person takes all the first spots, the other person takes all the last spots. But fortunately, the missions are built in such a way that you could take all the last spots and still dominate. I mean, I love to get at least one initiative roll that's on the 0 spot or at the very last, because, this game is about supporting your infantry to get them on the objectives and using your big stompy robots to provide that fire support. So I'll slap my infantry. If I get the first spot and the last spot, sometimes that's great, but also I wanted a game where you have to think about all your unit placement. Like, okay, this is the first round. The second round, I might roll really poorly on initiative, poorly is a nebulous word too, because sometimes if you're like all your units are going last, sometimes that's an advantage. You use your micro, hide all your everything. It's built so everything can hide. So even your big mech can hide behind a building. And hey, I'm going last, but I've got a jetpack, a GED, and give them hell attitude. I'm going to fly out here and count because you moved poorly when you were moving. So
yeah, you can react to what they do instead of have to think what to go first. Yeah,
exactly. I wanted something. Describing how I came up with that initiative tracker is hard to do, because I feel like the creative process, there's a lot going on upstairs that I just can't explain to you guys. Like a lot of war games are antiquated. A lot of skirmish games are antiquated. And they're all following the same tried and true. Like, how many more Warhammer clones do we need? So,
right.
I decided to do something a little different with that, but then also I didn't want the same old structure of roll to hit, roll to wound, roll to make an armor save.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's the next thing I was going to talk to you about is the way the things attack. That's really unique also.
Oh yeah. The hit chart was something that I'm all about cutting steps out, right? Can I give something an agility stat without giving it an agility stat? Hey, I'm rolling a burst roll to see how many bursts do I want to fire from my minigun. Okay, I'm going to fire 1, 2, or 3. I'm going to deplete my ammunition source by that amount and roll that many D10s. Well, that D10s generates a number of D8s. So people love exploding dice.
Oh, yeah.
Roll 3, and it turns into 5 or 8 or 10 dice.
Mhm.
Now take those D8 because, A, I've rolled so many D6 in my time on the table. I want to roll something different. Roll some D10s, roll some D8s. Cram a couple of... I'm not going to try and get the whole polyhedral dice set into this game, but I can do D10s and D8s. Well, the D8s just work really well for hit locations. A high agility unit might be an infantry unit where 1 through 5 is a miss. 6 and 7 hits the torso, 8 hits the head. So the infantry are innately squishy, but we also know that in an urban combat environment, infantry are smaller, they're nimble, and they're probably hugging all the obstacles and micro-terrain they can. I could give them an agility stat and create another math equation, or I can give each model a hit chart. And this is what you need to roll each location. And there's no math involved. I cut down on the core rules, read it once and then never again, unless, you're playing a rules lawyer and then the rules are there. But, and hey, rules lawyers are good. Rules lawyers keep us honest when we're on the table. So, yeah. To an extent, it depends on the flavor of rules lawyer. There are some that are trying to, as long as they are trying to read the rules and not twist the rules.
Yeah, exactly.
I love a good rules lawyer. They keep us honest at the table.
Well, especially for a game designer, you have to write in the way to avoid misunderstandings and stuff like that, where people take advantage that way.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
absolutely. And there's not much room for advantage play. Did I roll an 8 on this weapon during my hit location roll against that infantry guy? Yes. Okay. The hit chart says I hit it in the head, and the weapon has a value of 1, and that unit now has 2 hit points remaining on the head. 2 more, and that unit is removed. I wanted the exploding dice thing, but also I've played games where you have tanks, and the tanks have a single linear hit points tracker, and to me that didn't feel like, I was shooting at a tank. I'm not blowing off the weapon. I'm not blowing off the treads. I'm just shooting at, like, a tank, but it's got a single HP tracker like Link from The Legend of Zelda, and when the hearts run out, it just disappears. It spins around 5 times and then explodes.
It just completely falls apart. That's how tanks work.
That's exactly how tanks work. You just throw a grenade at them, after pulling the pin out with your teeth, because that's how Rambo does it. The human can 100% survive the pounds of pressure it takes to remove a pin from a grenade. Absolutely not. But, I wanted that feeling. If you've got big giant robots in a game, you want multiple hit locations, and it didn't have to be roll to hit, roll to wound, roll to armor save. In fact, saves are I'm not going to say they're rare, but they're not. There's about 2 different units off the top of my head. The Paladin Warlord mech has a shield generator, and that thing runs out of shield generator charges after a while. You roll to save. You don't necessarily negate that damage. You just take it against your shields instead of whatever body part was hit. Mm-hmm. And then the Valkyrie Shield Maidens, so the support mechs, and those ones I thought were really cool. They're the ones, if you're looking at the website, it's got the Valkyrie synth, and she's riding around in a frame. And that was a more Masamune Shiro inspired design, actually. But yeah, no, the roll to hit mechanics was something I wanted to do something a little different, and I'm talking around in circles here, so I think I'll stop right there. And what else?
Yeah, with the also when you deplete all the hit points too, it takes different things, take different negatives for destroying them, which I think is kind of neat for the mechs too.
Oh yeah, absolutely. Blow a leg off and it has a movement penalty, and you're not really technically blowing the leg off. I'm just notionally in my head canon, the way it's described is you've now at this point degenerated that leg to where it's reduced efficiency. You've depleted the arm or the head to where the cameras are no longer working as they should be. The arm is not as dexterous as it was, and you're suffering movement and dice penalties as you get more degraded. That's made for some fun games. I had a guy at ReaperCon last year. I don't know if you guys are familiar. Reaper Miniatures,
Oh yeah, we're good friends with John Walker and Kev.
Wonderful. Yeah, no, and ReaperCon is a great convention. I was there last year, and I'll be up there again. The plan is to be up there again this year, which is becoming more and more certain as the world returns gradually back to normal. But I had a guy up there, and he was playing his Paladin Warlord class mech against, the Oni faction, and the Oni had been bludgeoning this thing, where if you look at one of the Oni mechs, its weapon is literally a massive Tetsubo made from 4 cannon barrels, or 3 cannon barrels bolted together. So really
Nice.
playing that Oni, that whole Oni lore. Since I'm mentioning it, I'll post a little Instagram link in the chat for you guys to take a look at just that specific one. And this guy playing the anime, first off, it was fun because I watched him dance around the table a few times saying, "Oh my God, this really feels like mech anime." But, he had a leg blowing off. He had another leg down to like 1 hit point remaining. He had an arm blowing off, a head blowing off, but his mech was still functioning in fight. And he was vocalizing the scene in his head. He's like, "Oh my God, my mech is on fire. The cameras are sparking, and I'm still fighting. Oh my God, this is cool. It feels like mech anime." So, that was another thing I was very happy to capture, and to see it in the faces of the playtesters.
Yeah, it's amazing with like you say, 8 pages of rules, how much excitement you can still get out of a game. Like it doesn't take 100 and something pages or 300 pages to make a game. Like that's the beauty of these kind of games.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. And everyone I've talked to, I can explain the game and get them playing inside of a minute. But my whole game designer philosophy has always been just enough, right? You can only fill the human brain with so many things at one point in time. And I have seen people go beyond the point of diminishing returns. Just trying to cram a ton of stuff in there. I have played a game system that I won't name. I'm not going to throw shit because these other game systems I play, I absolutely love them. And I'll digest a 30-page, 50-page rule book for a good game system. But I always felt like there was too much going on. I had a 174-page core rule book memorized in 2014. Anyone else played that same game probably will hear this and be like, "Yes, I know what game he's talking about." And I had a lot of fun with it. There was stuff in there that just wasn't necessary. I felt like I didn't need to have a universal rule for Overwatch in this game. I could just take the Paladin infantry and say, "Hey, your tactical ability is this thing. You gain the aim token and you spend it at any time to immediately interrupt the action to fire your weapon." And people read that and they're like, "Oh, that's Overwatch." But what I've spared the players, the end user, is having to sift through a 30-page manual for universal keywords like Overwatch or universal keywords like a save, when not every infantry unit in the world of Ignition Corps is trained to fire reactive shots. Not every mech in Ignition Corps relies on shield generators. Not every, so not only can I have all this cut down the rules drag for my opponents, but I can really portion out these things that might otherwise be universal keywords and give each faction its own little bit of diversity. The Paladin faction is the king of shield generators, in the fact that their big warlord mech, your centerpiece mech, has a really reliable shield generator. And because it's the Paladin, hey, I want to evoke that RPG feel that this shield generator extends 3 squares in all directions, away from, into friendly models. So it can tank off shots, so you can fly in formation with your dropship. Because if your opponent wants to think tactically and say, "Hey, I'm going to stop my opponent from scoring objectives by shooting his dropship out of the sky and forcing his infantry to foot slog," and that's a legitimate tactic. But the Paladin player might say, "Hey, my mech is going to fly in formation with my dropship and provide shield buffing for that." Whereas, the Oni faction, they don't have shield generators, but they do have like AoE attacks. They've got grenades with splash damage. Their mech, if you play the one with the Gatling gun, it looks at things for too long and they get pulled off the board just from that massive Gatling gun. And it has its own little reactive abilities. And people love that. AoE, area of effect attacks, is not just a thing that every faction gets, but they get it. The Valkyrie faction has cool little tactical abilities that say, hey, in your tactical phase, before the action even happens, all my maiden units, my battle maiden, my shield maidens, I'm actually working on a sword maiden that I want to release later on, but there's a key word that says, hey, maiden, I want to say it's, you write so many of your own rules, you forget the names to them sometimes, but it's like, the Spirit of the Hunt protocol, where now, hey, every single maiden unit on the table gets to move 3 squares before the action starts. Or, Spirit of the Raid protocol, where you don't need to move squares, but you now bake in a few rerolls into those units because they've already made contact with the enemy, and now you want them in there berserking with, an axe or a spear or whatever they're armed with. The Valkyries being a very melee-heavy faction. Shoot a few railguns from across the table, but then get stuck in with axes and spears and lances. And, I really think if you keep that core rulebook simple, you just explain to players how to get through a battle round and at what time you do what things. You can put all the nuance into the individual data sheets and have a really, really fun game that has a lot of nuance, that doesn't have a lot of rules drag.
Yeah, especially you only have to remember what your faction can do, or your specific model, so you don't have to read all about what everybody else is doing to you.
Exactly. You'll learn that through you'll learn that the hard, painful way through playing games.
Yes.
Seeing little shenanigans happen. The Nephilim faction is the most tricksy faction because they're insurgents. They move in and out of the shadows. They have special rules where if you fire at their infantry, they can roll d10s, and for each result of an 8 or 9, they can move a square, react reflexively, and if it moves them out of line of sight of the attack, hey, those little guys maybe came out of the shadows to claim an objective and were able to slip back into the shadows just as fast. Their trade-off is none of their mechs fly. Their dropship flies, but everything else has to run around on foot, scurrying through kind of the, what would you call it, the undergrowth of the city.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So, yeah, that was a very purposeful, calculated decision. The other thing with that, and this is just informed by years of wargaming, is every round has a reinforcement phase. So if you looked at it closely, you'll notice everything comes back.
I was just going to ask that because I didn't see in the rules other than the reinforcement phase. So do any models that you've lost just come back during the reinforcement phase?
Everything comes back in the reinforcement phase. That includes your big mech. That includes your pilot. That's not for free. If you lose so once you get into the mission packs, you'll see that there's secondary objectives. So if I wipe out all of my opponent's infantry in a single battle round, I get the Headhunter secondary objective, and I get a victory point for that. On top of that, you don't win the game by killing models. Essentially, exclusively, you win it by claiming tactical objectives. So if I've shot all your infantry off the battlefield and they were holding objectives, and now you return them to play starting in your deployment zone, you basically, just like playing Call of Duty Online, Halo Online, you've gone back to a spawn location and you have to reclaim the ground you've got. Mm-hmm. Now, the one thing I've found, and I have a philosophy, so the main reason I wanted that reinforcement step phase is I've played too many games where there's a tipping point, right? It's a game of 5 battle rounds, let's say, but by round 2 or 3, the tides have turned, everything is slipped, and one player is getting the runaway victory because they had a really good shooting phase. They got fire superiority on their opponent, and now you're just spending the rest of the time playing catch-up because, now I'm operating with 60% of what I started with. My opponent has 100% of what they started with. It's the bottom of turn 1, and this game is just going to progressively get worse for one player.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. The other thing is I made sure that this game had so I wanted that to not be a factor, and I've succeeded in that. I've seen games that one turn goes horribly for one player, but they've been able to turn it around, and usually the game is a very, very close score. It's like 9 to 10 or 7 to 8 points or 3 to 5 points. The reinforcement phase also allows me to say, okay, in other games, playing a longer game means buying more miniatures, right? I want to play a longer game. Well, I have 3,000 points of miniatures instead of 2,000 points to get through to make 5 battle rounds longer. For mine, if there's a reinforcement phase, you just play more battle rounds. 3 battle rounds is great for introducing this game. I think it really shines when 2 versed players are playing it at 5 battle rounds. And if you're that dude that just is absolutely masochistic about playing a Day Slayer game, like 7 battle rounds will 7 battle rounds will eat up the majority of your afternoon. And I put those as the standards: 3 rounds, 5 rounds, and 7. And if you're just one of those people that wants to play until the wee hours of the morning, hey, homebrew and play 15 battle rounds if that's your thing. Like, you don't need to go and you don't need to spend $500 or $1,000 on plastic miniatures. I built this so 8 miniatures is the whole set. I've got armored fire teams as low as $99, giving you everything. Some get up a little higher because of certain models, like some of the more boutique, the more dynamically posed models require me to use more expensive casting methods. Yeah. But even then, like, the books are free, the scenarios are free. You can print out the terrain on the website onto cardstock for free. Just go to Rules and Downloads, print off the terrain. And you can see from some of the images, there are some pretty cool looking, colorful buildings. You can buy my $45, neoprene mat on the website, but all the missions are designed to fit on a basic wet erase Pathfinder mat, because they all fit in a 24 by 30 grid map. So if you play Pathfinder, or you have any kind of like Pathfinder or Dungeons and Dragons mats that can accommodate at least 24 by 30 squares, that's one less thing to worry about buying. I know of very few miniatures boutique wargaming style games where $100 to $150 and you're done. You've bought your faction. I know a lot of games where that's just books,
For sure.
First box of miniatures to fill out one of 10 battlefield roll slots. So I wanted to. Anyway.
Sorry to interrupt, but I did have one question.
Yeah.
With the fire teams, I'm looking at the rules and I'm looking at the packs that you got, and I guess would the bare minimum just be the regular fire team with the 4 infantry, the 2 support mechs, the big mech, and the big transport, I would guess you would call it?
Yes. So that is pretty
because
much...
there's a complete and then there's a regular, and the complete gives you, looks like 2 more figures.
So there is a completionist set that I did for 1. And all that is it gives you... So most of the character, so we're looking at the Nephilim Insurgent Armored Fire Team complete. So all that one does is it gives you a hero character. There's an optional play mode where you can add heroes in, and heroes do things like you add in a mechanic, or you add in a sniper, or you add in... so if you look at the Ignition Core Paladin versus Oni bundle, and you see our iconic, our mascot, Rosie, the mechanic girl with the massive wrench. She's an optional model. When I offer complete bundles, it's, hey, here's everything for that faction. You're still playing a complete game when you play the Armored Fire Team, which is the 8 models total. Your mech, your pilot, your dropship, your 2 support mechs, and your 3 infantry. That's both basically the minimum and maximum fire team. If you want to customize, I'm working on the next run of models. So I'll actually post another link here in a second. So I'm actually sending the first link I'm sending you right now is to the battle report that a friend of mine and I filmed. So if people want to watch this played, you can link them to that battle report. It's actually pretty good quality, and it's just me and a friend of mine. He filmed battle reports for other game systems and wanted to help me out with mine. But the future releases, you get those 8 miniatures, you've bought your fire team. If you want to play with heroes, those are optional rules that add a new dynamic. The standard is just have 1 hero per side. So you really only creep up to 9 models at that point.
Gotcha.
Future customization. So I'm putting another Instagram link in here. You can see the missile launcher girl. She is just designed to be substituted out for one of the Gatling gun characters from the Paladin faction. So each faction is going to get their alternate weapon loadouts. And rather than having points values, I've just said, here are the slots. Every fire team gets a pilot slot, which is your pilot and the mech that they pilot into battle. 2 support slots, 3 infantry slots, and a transport slot. And the idea of this is, if you played anything that's been around for a while that has points values, there's always like, what do I want to call it? Like a power creep.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And some games, the power creep is pretty tightly regulated. Other games, it just turns outright broken, especially as players figure out ways to like manipulate the power creep. My goal is to keep this a living rule set and to keep it slot-based. That way, if there's power creep, it can be very tightly adjusted, and no one ever feels like, well, I like the Oni faction, but now I have to go out and buy the Valkyrie faction because I'm not going to win if I don't play this faction. I want to nip that in the bud. I'm very feedback oriented. If you click any of the rules, you'll see that, or not the rules, the faction data cards, you'll see there's a list of dates and patches of things that I've adjusted just to keep the balance finely tuned. So I know that was a long answer to a short question.
No, it actually it makes sense because I just didn't notice that it was slotted in the rules.
Oh yeah. Yeah, the slots, any fire team that you buy on here fills every slot.
Right.
If you click on the hero cards under rules and downloads, it just basically gives you the additional optional extras for heroes. I may need to update my FAQ. I have to check on myself here because it's funny. Like when you do something like this, any game creator has 100 ideas in their head at any time. And if they can get to 5% of their ideas, they are winning at life. So, there's about, for every 3 ideas I get out there, there's 97 others rattling around. The one thing I've found is the more and more I do this, the more I run into people that are completionists. Mm-hmm. So this game wasn't meant to be a completionist game. It was, hey, buy your faction, get your 8 models, get on the table, have fun, and don't break the bank chasing the meta or, trying to buy everything. But there are some people that are like,
"Oh yeah,
you've got,
I got it.
I want it all."
And so I made some of those sets where I put completionist in there. So if you look at one of the Valkyrie sets, I can't remember if I called it the completionist or if I just had 3 tiers of sets.
No, your Nephilim was complete fire team. The Paladin freelance is a completionist set.
So in that completionist set, now there is a small misnomer in there because there's 2 versions of the Paladin Warlord mech, and I may need to amend that and put both in. But this one has every hero. Let me double check that.
I think it does.
It actually is missing. I'm keeping myself honest here. It has every single basic infantry currently available, and then it has the heroes that were available at the time that I launched this.
Gotcha.
But now there's an additional hero, an additional mech for that faction. Coming soon, there is that rocket launcher girl is going into this faction as well. So this one here, I actually need to get back in and update. But and if you look at my web store, you can tell that I'm a one-man operation because everything's a little bit all over the place. I'd like to think it's fairly well organized, but yeah, there's quite a bit going on here, and at some point, I have to slow down and redo this website. But yeah, if you buy an armored fire team off the website, you've bought everything you need to play that faction in a game that is full size. It's not like you're playing a watered down version of Ignition Core. English escapes me a little bit here.
Did you do a male and female fire team for all 4 of the factions?
I didn't, actually. The 2 main military superpowers in this are the Oni faction and the Paladin faction. And you can delve into their lore a little bit more. But they have 100% male and female representation across the spectrum. The Valkyrie faction is all girls. I thought about doing some kind of like all-male version that follows Viking lore, like maybe the Jotnar faction, but I just haven't gotten to that. And I've noticed people prefer the females over the males, more, generally speaking.
Sure.
Maybe that's Games Workshop's fault for not delivering on Sisters of Battle for so long. A lot came over, and the female models are more popular than the males.
I think that's just across the board, really.
Yeah, it could be. I mean, I think female characters tend to be more fun to design, and female miniatures tend to just be more, like, interesting miniatures. The Nephilim faction, if you look at it, it's co-ed, so it's a mixture of male and female, so you will have male and female miniatures in your faction once you fill all your slots, but there isn't a thing of everything has a female and a male counterpart. But with the Nephilim faction, I mean, part of the intent with that is to capture that they are not a major military superpower. They're operating in small cells. They've got what they've got. So, their swordsman is a male, their caster is a female, and then their gunner's a female, and then they've got a dark paladin infantry guy who's a male. So they're a small unit. They're eclectic. They don't have matching uniforms. You look at their big mech, and I kind of borrowed from Gundam 00. You remember Exia Repair at the very start of season 2, where it comes out and its arm's blowing off, and
it's in a rough way.
It's in a rough, yeah. So this Warlord mech has its right arm blown off with a tarp, kind of bolted on, like this, which gives it a very roguish look. But it also tells you, hey, this is a faction that is operating with what they've got, which is limited gear and it's broken gear. And it's a ragtag group of people, so that also is a little bit of a throwback to the JRPG where you have the ragtag party, down to, hey, one of the characters has a massive sword, one of them is using, like, a ball to basically siphon off the fusion power to do casting things, and then one of them is, the rogue girl with the dual canister rifles. And, hey, we've got another big sword hero in the Dark Paladin, that's a little bit more of a knight flavor than the other swordsman who's a bit more of a rogue flavor, Ignition Core, if you look at the whole thing has its influences from growing up on the fantasy-based JRPG. I mean, the titular, or not the titular, that's the wrong word. The signature mech of the series, is the Paladin Warlord class mech. It's got the big Crusader shield with the Crusader's cross on it. It is there for... I'll own that. I'm that shameless guy that anytime a fantasy game is being played, I want to play the Paladin. So, I've written my character into kind of the main, like, poster child role in this, say the Paladin Warlord class mech. So, that's something that a lot of people that play fantasy games have appreciated, is that there's little nods to, like, fantasy RPGs tucked away in there, too.
Yeah, very much so.
You're hitting on all the cylinders there. You also said that you have a coupon code for our listeners too, right?
I sure do. And let me get into my dashboard here because I'm fairly certain I sent that to you.
Yep.
But let me get to my dashboard to make sure I don't misspell this or anything. I want to say it's Mobile Armor Radio.
It is all one word. Do capitals matter? Or?
I don't think capitals matter. Let me get into and I should have had this pulled up. This is poor organization on me.
No worries.
But hey, anyone listening, here it is. Mobile Armor Radio, all one word. I have capitalized each word. 10% off all products. This coupon code does not expire. So anyone listening in that wants to plunge on Ignition Core, there's no minimum order. And it applies to your entire order, and it does not expire. Mobile Armor Radio, all one word, capitalized each word. I'm sure you guys will link it in the description, too, so that they can copy-paste.
For sure.
And, 10% off the order. Get in on it and save yourself a little bit of money going in.
Definitely. It's rules are free. You're just buying the models. Models look great. The rules are nice and concise.
And they look like they'd be really fun to paint too. Like
I do actually. That's what I was looking at. That's why I'm glad it's on the acceptable side of the chibi size head for me, because I really want to paint them.
Oh, yeah. And this is the other thing. Every infantry model is unique. No two look the same. And if you've ever painted 50 identical Space Marines,
exactly.
Oh, yeah.
Burned out.
hopefully that's something that speaks to people. Like the low model count nature of the game.
Mhm.
I have batch painted dozens and dozens of miniatures in short amounts of time, and it can become a chore. I really hope with 8 miniatures to make a full team, people can really just take their time and enjoy the journey of getting a fully painted armored fire team to the table.
Yeah, we look forward to people posting some painted miniatures once they jump on this. Hopefully, we get some people joining in. Yes, Will. Yeah, it's been good talking to you. We've kept you longer than we've meant to, but it's good to hear about the game. Good. And we do want to hear when you get new stuff. For sure, come back on and we can discuss any of the expansions plus the RPG, which I'm very excited about. So, excited.
And you're more than welcome to post announcements of your own in the Mobile Armor Radio group on Facebook. We always welcome that and like-minded folks will definitely join in there.
Well, thanks again, Will. And now on to the ExFil.
Let's ExFil out of here.
Welcome to the ExFil. That was a great interview with Will.
Yeah.
He's very energetic. Yes.
Yeah, he's, and the game sounds great. I mean, I'm not going to lie. We looked at the rules. We talked about it. Thank God the models are on my acceptable side of chibiness.
Yeah. No, it looks like a lot of fun.
Yeah, it does look, and the miniatures do look great. And I'm like, oh man, do I need more miniatures?
Yes.
I mean, I want to paint them. If anything, I want to paint them. That's for sure.
Like, I hope he does go to Adepticon next year, because then for sure I will get it. That is not a question. I'll be buying it at Adepticon. So we'll see. We'll see. Hopefully, he makes it to the Adepticons. Other than that,
sure he could definitely get out there. Maybe we can introduce him to the the Robo Giga Robo guy, and they could share a booth.
Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Other than that, please check out our Facebook page. That's where the most activity is, I think, now. You may hate Facebook, but it's a fun community. Just ignore everything else there. And
just get Facebook just for Mobile Arm Radio.
That's right.
Don't look at anything else.
Join the group and hit the bell. And that's all you'll see.
Ding.
Other than that, we have Discord. I put some stuff in there, but it's not super active. We were talking about actually the Robotech Kickstarter in that Facebook group. You can see what everybody's opinion is there. And if you have any other questions or you're another small company who wants to talk about their game on our show, please do email us at mobilearmorradio@gmail.com and get a hold of us because we love it. We love talking to these small companies, getting people excited about games other than the big ones. So
yeah, and it's good to get more mech games out there because, like we said in the interview, there's just not a lot of mech games out there.
Yeah, it's not crazy filled up space. Well, it is becoming like more and more things like this. It's where people see a niche or the kind of game they want to play, and they make the game. And like Will obviously has gone above and beyond. A lot of guys make the PDF or make a drive-through RPG link to a game, but he's actually made miniatures, which is that's the next step up. Like, because a lot of people
100%.
Like we said last episode, or the episode before, it was miniature agnostic games. You can that's easy to make your own game that way, but to actually make your own miniatures, that's not easy, especially make them cool looking like that too. So good on them. Anything else, guys? Check out Dead Zone the podcast with Brian and Rick. Monthly show, pretty much monthly, I would say, if not more often.
Yep, we'll be coming out right before this episode.
Yeah, always trying to steal our thunder. And Pat and I are with our buddy Jack on Dragon's Tome Radio. If you're interested in old school D&D and Dragon Magazine, we're going through every issue chronologically, and it's a fun time. And we make fun of the 70s a lot, I think.
Yeah. Well, it's not even so much that we make fun of the 70s, but what I find very entertaining is we're watching the evolution of RP role-playing. Every issue, we're finding something new, and things are changing, and you're seeing where all of this comes from.
Yeah. Also, it's also funny seeing the letters page and how things have not changed too much. It's a different medium, but the same idea of people bitching and moaning.
Same angle. It just took weeks to get printed.
Yeah, that's right. But fun times. It is a video podcast on YouTube. Just look up Dragon's Tome. And yeah. Other than that, we'll be back next month for an exciting episode. I've been Rob.
I've been Brian.
And I've been Chopper.
Bye-bye.
Good night, everybody.
We'll see you later.
Are you going to sing us out, Pat?
What can I sing? I don't know. You see, I got that song out of my head now.
Hit me, baby, one more time.
Yeah, but I got that song out of my head now, so now I need a new song to replace it.
Me.
Well, Brian just sung us out.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go.
This has been Mobile Armor Radio. Join our Facebook group by searching for Mobile Armor Radio. Find us on Twitter @MArmorRadio. Find us on iTunes and visit our website, mobilearmorradio.podbean.com. Join us on the first of every month for more Mecha discussion.
I'm addicted to you because you know that I'm toxic.
You're toxic?
Oh, fuck.
Pat, are you toxic?
Hello?
Hello?
Can you hear us?
I can hear you now.
Brian,
You got your Britney on?
Yeah, if you're toxic.
I don't even know why that came out of my mouth. It just was sitting, it just came out. Like, what the fuck?
Well, I was recording, so it's for all posterity's sake now.
That's all right.